With ship-wide communications down and the unidentified shuttle having made its way past containment, Captain Matthias immediately ordered all survivors of the crash arrested and quarantined. Under the sound of the fire alarm, a security team commanded by Chief Security Officer Alyssa Vincent hastily made their way towards Base 17. Yet, as they arrived at the site of the crash, they were greeted by nothing but an empty cargo bay, an empty shuttle, and a sea of blood. Despite a thorough investigation of the crash site, Vincent's team found no trace of the crew of the vessel, leaving the experienced security officer highly concerned as they followed a blood trail leading out of the cargo bay. However, it would turn out that in their search of the area, they had overlooked one crucial aspect of the Ishimura's infrastructure. Through the massive ventilation systems of the Planet Cracker, the contaminated bodies and the infector from the crash site would gain access to the interior of the ship. The unsuspecting crew, going about their daily routines, were ambushed and cornered by these vicious creations and torn apart before any of them could even sound the alarm. Suddenly, flatlines raced across the board as crew member after crew member was mutilated. By the time the superiors at the bridge realized what was going on and sounded the alarm, it was already too late, for with each dead crew member came one more of the dead. Having followed the blood trail to the morgue, Vincent and her security team came upon the deformed corpse of a prisoner who had been confined for violent outbursts and suicidal tendencies. But upon the inspection of the deceased, the body came to life. With inhuman strength, the corpse overpowered security officer Dobbs before inflicting him with a fatal wound. Frantically assessing the situation, and with the combined firepower of her security team, Vincent managed to take down the threat, only to be ambushed by another. The ambush would claim the life of Security Officer Dobbs, and having survived direct contact with this unknown entity, barely able to catch their breath from the life-threatening ordeal, Vincent immediately reported the situation to Captain Matthias, emphasizing that something alien was attacking the ship. Chief Science Officer Dr. Cain suggested it was related to the marker, but was ignored by Captain Matthias, who directed Vincent and her team to the mess hall, ordering them to contain the situation so the marker could be prepared for transfer to Earth. Urgently, Vincent's team rushed into the mess hall, yet nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to encounter. Blood covering the floors, walls, and ceiling, corpses upon corpses of mutilated crew members were piled together, and on top of the pile of bodies were dozens of these creatures. Terrified, yet determined, Vincent ordered her team to engage the strange creatures. It would, however, quickly be apparent that Small Arms' fire was insufficient against these strange beings. Ferocious and almost unstoppable, the creatures soaked up bullet after bullet before overwhelming Officer Pendleton, instantly killing him. With monsters all around them and barely any ammunition left, Vincent's team seemed to be done for. But in a moment of luck, a mechanic came to their rescue, cutting down the creatures with a plasma saw. As the mechanic introduced himself as Samuel Irons, Vincent tried to get into contact with Captain Matthias. However, as communications were down, the team were left to defend themselves. The morale of the security team was wavering, with more and more crew members dying by the minute. Most were certain there was no chance of defeating these relentless creatures. Vincent, however, emphasized that their job was the safety of the crew, and nothing else. They would either contain the situation or die trying, and with the help of the mechanic Samuels, they armed themselves with mining equipment and headed back towards the bridge. Meanwhile, as tensions escalated, Captain Matthias seemed to be growing more and more erratic. The crew on the bridge became obviously concerned, as the captain continuously rambled on about the marker and the faithless who feared it or wanted to destroy it. Dr. Cain attempted to calm Captain Matthias, yet the attempts had the opposite effect on the captain, who interpreted Dr. Cain's intentions as hostile and mutiny. In a last-ditch effort to calm down the captain, Dr. Kine tried to administer a sedative. However, the captain turned violent and lunged at the doctor. In the scuffle that ensued, Dr. Kine accidentally stabbed the syringe with the sedative into the captain's eye, puncturing his brain in the process, killing him on the spot. Taken aback by the loss of their captain, the crew were suddenly caught off guard as a master alert rang out across the bridge. All emergency shuttles suddenly launched without warning, each and every one of them completely empty. Trapped on the ship with no means of communication, the captain dead, and those ungodly creatures roaming the Ishimura, Dr. Kine saw only one option left and fled the bridge as quickly as he could. In their attempt at avoiding large groups of the creatures running rampant throughout the Planet Cracker, Vincent's team had been forced to take a long detour throughout the ship with several close calls. The team finally ended up in the hydroponic section. However, these creatures were only a fraction of the power the marker possessed, for its true power could not be seen by the naked eye. Having been violently traumatized by the recent horrific event, and slowly driven to the edge of sanity by the effects of the marker, Sergeant Hansen finally broke. With Hansen's loud and insane ramblings echoing throughout the dead silent ship, the group's position was immediately compromised, and chaos quickly erupted. After the team survived an encounter with other monsters inside the hydroponics facility, Sergeant Hansen went mad and turned on his fellow officer Shen. With a plasma saw, he tore through her body, screaming laughter at the top of his lungs, before he, in a raging fit of insanity, turned his attention to Vincent herself. Seconds before Hansen cut into her neck, Officer Ramirez fired a round at the sergeant's head, killing him instantly. The team now understood that if the monsters didn't kill them, they would definitely kill each other. Vincent, Ramirez, and Irons would finally make it to the bridge, only to realize that the situation was much worse than they had anticipated. Despite hearing of the death of the captain, Vincent remained vigilant, certain that these creatures could be killed. However, before a plan could be made or put into motion, the guidance computers of the Ishimura suddenly shut down. Upon pinpointing the source of the problem, a technician discovered it to be Dr. Kine, shutting down the power to the engines. Without them active, the weight of the massive asteroid in log of the gravity tethers beneath the Ishimura would pull the ship out of orbit and send it crashing down into the planet. Determined to save the ship and its crew, Vincent, Ramirez, and Irons left the bridge to stop Dr. Kine in scuttling the ship, hoping to restore power to the engines. On their way to the room of the guidance computer, the three found a group of survivors trapped within a locker room. Ramirez argued that Kine should be the priority, but Vincent overruled him, underlining that their priority was to save the crew. Vincent ordered Irons and Ramirez to get into the vents and get the crew members out while she distracted the horde of creatures. However, Irons refused. As a faithful unitologist and a spiritual human being, Irons had already felt the crushing strain of the marker on his person and knew the time before he went insane was short. Fearless, Irons nobly charged the monsters, hoping to buy the others time, as Vincent and Ramirez succeeded in evacuating the crew members. It would, however, be at the cost of the life of Irons. As Vincent sent the crew members back to the bridge, her and Ramirez moved on towards Kine, only to be greeted by a door jammed by the doctor himself. Ramirez did his best to bypass the door, but as the two were compromised and the monsters charged at them, Ramirez revealed he wanted to hurt Vincent. The marker was tightening its grip on him as well. Against the protests of Vincent, Ramirez pushed Vincent through and shut the door on her, sacrificing himself so she could finish the job. In the room for the guidance computers, Vincent found Dr. Kine in the process of shutting down the system completely. The two argued the course of action, Kine certain that the monsters were an infection, while Vincent retorted that infections could be cured. The arguments finally turned physical, with Vincent getting the better of Kine. As Vincent succeeded in reactivating the guidance computer, Kine had fled and taken Vincent's plasma cutter with him in the process. She attempted to contact the bridge, yet received no reply. All alone and without a weapon, Vincent wandered off, almost as if something was guiding her. Finally, she ended up where it all started for her, in Base 17, next to the marker itself. Standing in front of this perplexing artifact, the horde of monsters found her and immediately charged at her. With what little strength she had left, she ran as far as she could, before she slipped and fell. Broken, fatigued, she braced herself for what was to come, yet nothing happened. The monsters didn't come any closer to her, almost as if they couldn't. Vincent realized it was the effects of the marker. They couldn't get near it, but why, she wondered. At the brink of exhaustion, Vincent collapsed to her knees before passing out, leaning up against the marker. She awoke to the sound of Ramirez calling her name. She still had a job to do, and he assured her that she could do it. She accessed the terminal next to her and recorded a message conveying the event of what had happened. She begged whoever saw the recording to destroy both Ishimura, the colony, and the marker. Finally, she implored the viewer not to forget the crew of the Ishimura and what they had tried to stop from happening that day. She uploaded the message to the emergency beacon of the crash shuttle and started the sequence for opening the cargo bay doors. Mustering up the very last of her strength, she charged into the horde of monsters, ducking and diving past the ferocious creatures. With the relentless monsters at her heels, she climbed the shuttle and held onto it for dear life as the cargo bay doors opened and the vacuum of space decompressed the entire hold. As everything was sucked out through the open doors, Vincent managed to press the emergency button, activating the beacon with a message and her very last words. Knowing that she had warned Earth about the marker, she had finally completed her mission. But alas, as her clutching death grip on the edge of the shuttle slipped, she was plunged into the darkness of space, never to be seen again. Hey there, Hazmat here. That concludes the prequels for the game Dead Space 1, so now we're moving on to the actual events of Isaac Clarke. If you're interested in the events about 87, the colony, Vincent, her team, and what happened on the Ishimura before Isaac arrived, the movie featured is called Dead Space Downfall, and there's also a full motion comic simply titled Dead Space as well, both of which adds an amazing level of layer to the story, and I highly recommend checking out them both. As always, a big thanks goes out to the Hunters Lounge, specifically the exclusive Get Your Boy, the exclusive Johnny Sevens, the VIPs Cole the Bear Slayer, Derivative, Doc Powell, Gino Lucero, Goose, Hambone, Jiminal Bob, Corey Peterson, Michael Thornell, Murdev Menace, Ryan, Slip, Stas Biestek, Sunrise Phoenix, TJ Crane, Texas Toast, and the Wizard of Copper. And of course, all the regulars. If you want to support me and the channel as a whole, consider signing up as a member of the Hunters Lounge, either on YouTube or Patreon, for as little as $1 a month. A link is in the description below, and thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.